When we added our custom cell, one of the things that we lost was the nice animated transition to and from the editing state. Apple's default cell styles provide a lot of nice functionality that we normally get for free, but when we start to create custom components, we need to recreate some of that functionality. So in this lesson, I'll show you how to do that. Now, admittedly, this is a little deeper than I would like to go in an introductory iOS course, but since I went down the path of creating a custom cell, I really wasn't comfortable leaving the behavior as it was in the last lesson. So as I swiped on the row, the delete button kind of nicely animates into view, but when I attempt to veto that action, I get kind of this hard transition. That's not exactly like Apple's behavior. So that quick and dirty solution that we put in place functionally worked, but certainly provides a less than ideal user experience. And creating a great iOS app really requires that you pay attention to the little details, as those details are often the difference between creating a good app and a great app. So let's take a look at how to resolve this. Now on my desktop, I've got a directory called Categories. And I'm going to simply drag and drop this into my iMusic project. So I'll select Copy Items into Destination Groups folder, say Create Groups for any added folders, and then add it to both targets and select Finish. This category called UI View plus Geometry is just some open source code I created a while back to simplify adjusting the geometry of a view. Really nothing special, just kind of simplifies the process so I don't have to create new frames and manually adjust sizes. Now in this specific case, it's going to allow me to adjust the frame widths of the labels very easily. So as the delete button animates into view, I need to shrink the width of the text labels, and when it animates out, I need to expand their width back to their original state. So you'll find a copy of this category in your working files directory. Now let me switch over to the music list cell, and I'll import that category, UI View plus Geometry. Now the first thing I want to do is just create a define. And this is going to define the resize adjustment amount that I want to make to these cell rectangles. I did some measurements earlier, and the delete button's about 57 points wide. Now I'm going to override a superclass method called willTransitionToState. When the cell transitions through its various states, specifically going into the delete state or back out, this willTransitionToState method is going to get invoked. And I want to check if the state it's going to transition to is UI table view cell state showing delete confirmation mask. It's quite a mouthful. Simply meaning that the state it's transitioning into is the one where the delete button is present on screen. Then I simply want to shrink down these labels. I don't need to animate this behavior, as Apple's default behavior doesn't do that either, but you get kind of an animated effect by the delete button animating into view. And then I also want to override this didTransitionToState method. And I'm going to use this to make some changes when the delete button animates out of view. In this method, I want to first check the state, and if the state is UI table view cell state default mask, meaning that it went from the editing mode back into its default state, I want to take that opportunity to resize those labels back to their original size. If it's not this state, then simply delegate up to the superclass version. And then in here, I'm going to use a feature available on UI View called Animate with Duration Animations. So this method's first argument is a duration, and this is how long I want this animation to take. This is specified in terms of seconds, so I want to have this be a 0.4 second animation. And then in this animations block, which is the section between these braces, this is what I want to animate. So the amount that I shrunk the labels down by up here, I essentially want to expand them by that same amount in this chunk. And then finally, when this animation block completes, then I want to call the superclass version of this. So let's try this out. I'm actually, for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to adjust this to a very large amount so you can see this animation in action more easily. I'll run the application and select View List. So as I swipe, I get the correct behavior. And as I animate out, you can see that slowly grow back to its original size. Actually, one little thing I'm going to change is I'm going to turn off that auto-sizing behavior that I'd set earlier. Let's turn that off. And we'll run this again. So I'll swipe back out and we can see this expand back to its original size. Now, of course, that's too slow, so let's go back to the cell and change this back to its original value of 0.4. Now that looks much better. So now we're essentially back to the original behavior that we had from Apple's default cells. So now you have a better sense for what it takes to perform these edit animations. If some of this went over your head, don't worry about it. Learning the intricacies of UI table view and UI table view cell, as well as to learn how to use the view animations, can certainly take some time. But like I said at the beginning, adding these little bits of polish is one way to really make your app stand out from the pack.